Hi, I'm Kettering Mayor Don Patterson.
Hello, I'm Lori Sims Parks, President of the Kettering Board of Education.
The opioid and heroin epidemic isn't just something we hear about happening around the country. It's here, it's real. It's impacting our region, our city, and our neighborhoods.
The key to addressing this crisis is educating the Kettering community about both the realities and the impact of this epidemic on all ages throughout our community.
We want you to know that the City of Kettering and the Kettering City Schools are committed to leading the way, and this video is one way we are providing the information about this epidemic for our community.
At the end of this program, we will share valuable tips and resources about how you can join us in the fight against the opioid and heroin epidemic. Thank you.
It's startling when you're talking to someone that had their whole life ahead of them and everything was on track, and now you're sitting in a jail cell with them and you want to know where things went wrong.
They never wanted to end up here. I don't think anyone in their right mind would want to be a heroin addict. But at the end of the day, they had no idea what that addiction was going to do to them, where it was going to lead them, and the effects it was going to have on their life.
When someone experiments with an opiate, there's no experimenting it. It's addiction. So it's, you got one shot at it.
That drug literally destroyed everything good within you. It was so much more important to you than me.
Somebody approached me and said, well, here, try this, and it was Oxycontin 80.
That's how this problem always starts.
All I wanted to do, if it had been in front of my face, is do it.
It just turned me into a monster.
I never thought any of this would ever happen to me.
I'm a criminal, I'm an addict. That's how everybody will always perceive me.
You can be the smartest person in the world. The minute that chemical hits your bloodstream, you lose control of what it does in your body. You can't control it. Nobody can control it.
And I asked them, of all the drugs they've ever tried, what's the most addictive drug? And without a doubt, it's oxycodone.
There's absolutely no difference between a heroin addict and a pill addict.
Every one of those needle users will tell you they couldn't get the high anymore doing it the way they were doing.
Heroin became the love of my life. I put heroin before my family. I put heroin before my children.
Just get me a little so I can stop.
I wasn't using to get high, I was using to stay well.
Your whole day revolves around it. You go to sleep doing it, you wake up doing it.
You're willing to do anything to get that next high.
I wouldn't wish that feeling upon my worst enemy.
You are who you hang out with, that is for sure.
I had a good life. I didn't need to do it, and I just couldn't stop.
I had maggots in my leg.
You'll do anything to make it stop.
You're still chasing that first high.
I couldn't even function without 40 pills a day.
It'll take you to hell and back, and if you're lucky, you'll make it back.
He sold me heroin, the same heroin that just killed me.
Her sister found her with a needle in her arm.
You can't go back and say I'm sorry or set a better example.
As much as I wanted to quit, I was too scared to ask for help.
It will get you.
Because I know it will kill me.
And my little girl is on the floor dead.
This is the largest drug epidemic that we have ever faced.
When we reference the opiate crisis, it's more than an opiate crisis for not only Ohio, but for the Montgomery County area. And if I just deal with numbers that have occurred in the last few years, in 2014, within Montgomery County, we had about 264 accidental drug overdoses. That year in 2014, for instance, City of Kettering had 8 deaths. In 2016, Kettering had 18 deaths. Montgomery County had 249. Unfortunately, as we sit here today, Kettering has already had 18 overdose deaths for 2017, Montgomery County is already over 300 deaths, whereby last year we experienced about 350 overall deaths. We are at a pace in Montgomery County to exceed 800 accidental drug overdoses in 2017. And it's tearing apart the community in the sense that it's not just the folks that die, it's the families associated with it, it's grandmas raising the kids. And we back up and we try to look at what's causing all of this. And the availability of heroin on the street was very inexpensive. We saw a change then from the inexpensive heroin to now the first generation almost 3 years ago of fentanyl. And fentanyl is a pain medication that is administered via patch by a doctor for long-term comfort. The next generation became the carfentanil, or the animal tranquilizer, and we know that is supposed to be somewhere between 20 to 100 times more potent than fentanyl, which is X amount more potent than morphine. So all of a sudden we have a community now that is seeking greater degrees of drugs for that ultimate high. Unfortunately, a significant number of them are dying from it because there is no quality control on the street. And if you look at carfentanil and say, well, how much of that do I need to die? And we take a salt shaker and say a couple of grains of salt, that size of carfentanil will kill you. So the death is pretty instant. When we look at our cross-section of the community, the vast majority of deaths are in the Caucasian male population. In the last few years, we've seen a little shift where there's an increase in female Caucasian for the deaths. But it's primarily throughout our community. Kettering is no different than Dayton, from Centerville, from any other community. The deaths are everywhere. And to sit back and think we may have 800 accidental deaths in Montgomery County in 2017, that should scare everybody. It's a community issue. It's something, as we're doing today, we're talking about it. We're not hiding the fact. We're trying to proactively come out and say, the numbers are staggering and we need to do something as a community.
My name is Andrea White. I'm the Clerk of Courts at Kettering Municipal Court, and I'm also the Vice Chair of the South Suburban Coalition, which is a group of 8 communities that are focused on helping to reduce teen alcohol and other drug use. The goal is to help our teens understand that there's lots of positive reasons to stay substance-free, and the vast majority of our youth are not using alcohol and other drugs to build for their futures.
I'm Ann Stevens. I'm with Montgomery County Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services, and we are the ones who help with the planning and funding for any kind of substance use and mental health issues we have in Montgomery County. Right now, of course, it's the heroin epidemic.
You know, in a very short period of time, the average profile of somebody dying of an overdose went from a 40 to 50-year-old white male to a 30 to 45-year-old white male, and it's continuing to drop. And those are overdose deaths. Now we're seeing more females. We're seeing a stronger use of drugs among young people. And so what that's going to do is create a pipeline, unfortunately, of that 18 to 30-year-old population that are getting addicted to drugs, addicted to prescription pills, and then because of the highly addictive nature of those, they can not just satisfy their addiction with that, and they're moving on to heroin. So in essence, because we've seen this dramatic increase of younger people using prescription pills, younger people starting to have overdose experiences, starting to seek treatment, as well as being tested positive for opioids when they get arrested in the juvenile justice system. These are all trends that we're alarmed about. We should all be alarmed about, because the profile of who's using and who's dying from heroin and prescription pills has dramatically changed.
We're seeing an increase in overdoses of all kinds. We are seeing people that are requiring a lot of Narcan, and sometimes when they're getting it, they're not even getting resuscitated fully, because there's quite a mix of drugs that are coming together at this point. Not only do we see the overdoses, but we see a lot of the infectious disease consequences. We are talking about an addiction which affects good people from good families who attended good schools, and they're dying. And we need to work as hard as we can as a community to fix that, because it is for the good of our community. But remember, these aren't bad people. They didn't start that way. They didn't make this choice willingly. These are good people coming from good families and starting in good schools. And anything we can do to save them is what we need to do.
Hi, my name is Corey Miller, and unfortunately I'm here today because I have a very personal connection to the opiate epidemic that is taking the country by storm. I'm a member of the Kettering community. I grew up here, went to Kettering schools, and my family just over a year ago was affected by the terrible thing that's taking place right here in our own community when we lost my own cousin, who's only a month older than me. And so it was a cousin who was very close to me, who we grew up together. Every family event we were together, and even into adulthood, saw each other quite a bit. My message is really, when you think of this problem, is to think of it as a problem that is affecting everyone. Whether it's the person who passes away or the family that is left dealing with what happened. And also, this issue is not something that you can stereotype people and put them into a category. My cousin graduated from Carroll High School, was a middle class, white, 29-year-old who owned his own house, had a good job, was a loving family member, and it took him.